A special thank you to each of our subscribers who make this channel possible. Here's today's story. In a move that has sparked significant concern among low-income families across the United States, the Trump administration has proposed a controversial 2-year time limit on rental assistance for public housing and Section 8 voucher programs. This policy could put more than 1 million households, primarily working families with children, at risk of losing their government-subsidized homes. New research from New York University, which has been obtained exclusively, highlights the potential impact of this proposal, suggesting that as many as 1.4 million households could be affected by the impending changes. The NYU report raises alarm bells over the largely untested nature of the policy, noting that many local housing authorities that have previously experimented with similar time limits eventually abandoned the initiative due to various challenges. The report indicates that if current assisted households are subjected to a 2-year limit, it could lead to significant disruption and increased administrative costs for public housing authorities. Once the time limit is reached, these authorities would be required to evict all affected households and identify new ones to fill the vacancies. The timing of this proposal comes amid a worsening national affordable housing crisis and rising homelessness rates. The Trump administration's intent to reshape the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, has raised questions about the future of stable housing for low-income individuals and families. At a recent congressional budget hearing, HUD Secretary Scott Turner argued that reforms, including time limits, are necessary to address waste and fraud within public housing and Section 8 programs. He stated that the current system has strayed from its original goal of providing temporary assistance to those in need, asserting that HUD assistance should not be permanent. However, while elderly and disabled individuals would be exempt from these new restrictions, there remains a lack of clarity regarding the implementation of time-limited housing assistance. Questions about enforcement, the start of the time limit, and the criteria for exemptions remain unanswered. The NYU researchers conducted a thorough analysis of HUD's nationwide data spanning a decade, examining nearly 4.9 million households that have utilized public housing and Section 8 vouchers. They found that approximately 2.1 million of these households could potentially be impacted by the proposed time limits, as they include at least one adult who is neither elderly nor disabled. Alarmingly, around 70% of these households have already relied on subsidies for 2 or more years. In response to the NYU study, HUD spokesperson Casey Lovett defended the administration's stance, asserting that there is ample data supporting the need for time limits. Lovett claimed that long-term government assistance without incentives discourages able-bodied Americans from seeking employment. The proposed time limits could have a particularly detrimental effect on children, as they would disproportionately affect families who are working but still earn significantly below their area's median income. Claudia Aiken, director of new research partnerships for the Housing Solutions Lab at NYU's Furman Center, emphasized the importance of housing assistance for children, noting that stable housing can profoundly impact their health, education, and future employment opportunities. One poignant example is Havala Hopkins, a 33-year-old single mother living in public housing near Seattle. She expressed her fears that the proposed 2-year time limit could leave her and her teenage son homeless. Her son, who has autism, is considered high-functioning, raising concerns about how HUD will define disabled and able-bodied in relation to the time limit. Currently, Hopkins pays $450 a month in rent, which accounts for 30% of her household income, allowing her to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. She shared her sentiments about her home, stating, "I like that I can afford it." Despite the administration's assertions, the report indicates that of the 17 housing authorities that have attempted to implement time limits, 11 have since discontinued the trial. None of these initiatives involved a strict 2-year limit. Instead, the most common approach was a 5-year limit, often with the option for an additional 2 years. The study also highlights that while there are over 3,000 housing authorities in the country, only 139 have ever been granted the flexibility to test time limits using federal funds for supportive programs like job training and financial counseling. Jim Crawford, director of the Moving to Work Collaborative, noted that discussions regarding time limits often focus on local needs rather than a broad national implementation. Even with additional support, Many housing authorities reported that high rents and a lack of well-paying jobs continue to pose significant challenges for tenants. Shante Spears from the Housing Authority of the County of San Mateo in California remarked that while 5-year time limits have motivated individuals to pursue self-sufficiency, the high cost of living in the Bay Area means many residents still struggle to afford rent after their time is up. She stated, "I believe the program is very helpful in getting folks prepared, but there lies this really significant rent burden here in our county. When folks do leave our time-limited program, they are facing an uphill battle." As the debate surrounding the proposed time limits continues, the future of affordable housing for millions of Americans hangs in the balance, raising critical questions about the role of government in providing essential support for vulnerable populations. That's all for this story. We upload videos every day covering many different subjects, so hit that subscribe button to stay informed. Thanks for watching.